All right, so we've been working on getting these rear bars cleaned up now. I know I'm gonna have to weld them, so we're probably gonna have to sand some paint off of them, but they've been rusty. We've been trying to get it all cleaned up, so I think we're gonna get it to a point where we can get it painted, and then whatever little areas I have to sand to do the rear end work, you know, the rest of the chassis work, we'll just do it, because really, after you spend hours sanding this to get the rust off, you don't want the rust again. So, look, say hi to the peoples.
Hi to the peoples.
Mallory's been in here doing some work too. So we've got it to a point, and right now, if this thing would focus, right now we're just going to go ahead and drop the rear end out, because there's just a couple things in the way, and if we drop the rear end out, we can get to everything we need to get, all the bars and everything, get them painted up, and then we'll be able to. It's also like super hazy in here.
Is it?
Yeah, because we've been sanding.
I've adjusted.
Yeah, but then we'll get the rest of the stuff painted, and then I'll be able to get this stuff as well. The 4-link brackets and all the 4-link brackets can be painted. I'm not going to weld on those, but I will be welding on that top bar and a couple other areas. But like I said, everything used to look like that rustiness down there, or even worse. So I've got the whole underneath done. You guys saw that in the last video. And we're gonna get the rest of this back half done, and then once that's done, we need to get some parts in, but we can start fabricating back here. So let's get this rear out. Ella, pull the rear out. No? Okay.
I got that one.
Alright, so now that we've got the rear out, I'll be able to sand this thing all the way down. I gotta look, but we might have to finish welding some of these brackets on there and that kind of stuff. But Mallory's getting it cleaned up. It looks like the rest of this is gonna be ready to paint. Like I said, I know we're gonna have to sand some off to go ahead and weld in certain spots, but I think if we cover everything in paint right now, it's gonna protect us for however long that takes, and it'll just make for a pretty decent finished product at the end. We're not trying to do show car stuff here. Like, this isn't show car stuff. It's just protect the chassis, make it so that it can last for many years to come, hopefully. Say cheese.
Cheese.
Paint it up.
Okay.
I'm gonna show this to you now while it's still wet, because it always looks the best while it's still wet. But what do you think?
I think it looks good.
I think we're gonna redo the cage. Not redo, like not sand it, but just repaint it to match the gloss. Because the gloss seems to hide a little bit more, like the flat. It just shows every little time you touch it. The gloss seems to hide that a little bit more, I'm hoping. But yeah, coming together real nice. Looks good for a little pomade. All right, we're back in action, and we have let this paint dry a little bit. Actually, let it dry for a day or so, and it looks really, really good back here. I'm super pumped about the way that this is coming out, and it looks halfway decent. You know, it's still the pomade. It ain't gonna be perfect, but this paint looks pretty good. It usually looks the best when it's wet, but I'm glad to see that when it dried, it still retains some of that shine and still looks pretty good. I'm happy about that. I do believe tomorrow we have the Wishbone kit showing up, so we'll start working on the rear, I guess. Man, that's crazy. So today I'm gonna go ahead and sand down the rear, get that ready, and then also I brought over the cutoff wheel because I want to get the sides of this firewall out. I want to get those out and kind of see what we're working with over there. Plus, there was a couple little brackets on the inside that I saw that could be cut off. The name of the game with this thing is going to be as lightweight as possible. So if I feel like I can cut it off and we don't need it, I mean, now's the perfect time because there's nothing in the car, there's nothing in the way. So we're going to get to work on cutting some of this stuff off, getting it out of the way, making it a little lighter. Now, trimming this is kind of multi-purpose, right? It's not just about weight, because I can't imagine that from here over weighs a ton. But what it does do is it opens up opportunity and space, because I know you're thinking like, well, you know, how much are you really going to save there? Well, it's not going to be a ton, but what could be possible is that once we have this section removed here, right, and we kind of flatten it out with the side over there like they do on all the other cars, once that's done, it's possible that maybe we could stick a turbo in here. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never done it, but I've got a cutoff wheel and I'm not afraid to use it. So let's check it out. All right, so next up on the list, I'm really excited about this. Number one, the last time I touched a TIG welder was when I built the ladder bars for that car. And fun fact, I helped Nick weld the chassis on Straight Gangster. He had it all chassised out and just needed, you know, all the bars were just tacked, needed finish welding. So I'm finally gonna get the TIG weld again. We got a TIG welder, we've got parts rolling in left and right. Right now, I'm gonna start working on the Wishbone. So the Wishbone is what we decided to go with for our rear centering device. As you can see, it'll slide in here. This is a greasable unit. This is from Rhodes Race Cars. I picked this up in the secondhand market, so I'm pretty pumped about that. There's 10 million ways you can do this. There's benefits and, you know, negatives to everything you do. So the way that we've decided to do this is we're going to do a top mount Wishbone, and that's purely because we've got a drain on the bottom of this 9-inch housing where we can't weld that into because there's a drain there, so we're going to have to go on the top. Now the flip side to this too is that I don't have to build it in the car. I'm actually going to build a jig to build this outside of the car, and then we will have it all finished welded and everything, and then just the pieces, you know, this kit actually comes with some really nice pieces that just bam, right to the bar, and I can weld it around, and then this is going to the rear end housing. So those are the only things that will have to be built inside of the car. So first thing I want to do is get this rear in place. Once we get the rear in place, then I can go ahead and start getting all my measurements for everything, start drawing it out. Like I said, there's a million ways to build this. You know, people have bent the bars. We don't have a tube bender, so we're not gonna be able to put any bend in them. They're gonna have to be straight like a triangle, which a lot of them are designed like that anyway. Yeah, I'm real excited because we finally get to some good fabrication work. I've been spending the last few days doing nothing but just plotting, planning, ordering parts, run around town 50 million times to get everything we need. I had to switch the outlets in the shop to be the correct 220 outlets. So I've been doing a lot of work, and now I finally get to work on the car again. Let's get to work. Alright, so one of the first things I'm going to do is take some measurements. One of the things I want to do is kind of check over just where we're at in general. Right, we're at 7 1/4 from the 4-link bar to this bar. Here we're at 7 1/4. So it looks like when they built this thing, they did a halfway decent job, which is going to make my life a little bit easier. What I want to do is I want to get the measurement of this right here, so that way I can find center. But once I have this measurement, these measurements, all we're doing is building a triangle. And I'll be able to subtract the distance off of the mounts here out of that, and we'll be able to build this whole little triangle on the floor or on a table instead of trying to build it in here. I mean, you could say if I try to build it in here, it's going to be real tight. I mean, also all of these ends are Heim joints, so as much as I'd love to do this perfectly, there's going to be some room for error and some room for adjustment and a little bit of movement, so that way we can get it just right. 24 1/2. 21 3/4. But we have to subtract this. I've got to pick a spot to do the 2 mounts here. Right? I'm hitting some metal there, but I'm not hitting the bars. 4 inches. After many decades of math, ta-da! We have come to what will be our jig. So what we're going to need is on the jig, the bolts, because I'm going to use weld bolts in place. They're going to be 13 3/4 inches away from each other, and right smack dab in the middle of that, 22.5 inches out, there's going to be another bolt, and that is going to be the one that mounts to the rear end. So now it's a very simple T-jig, but what will happen, so a bar comes here and we'll weld these to the sides, we'll triangulate it, and then we'll put some support in the middle. Bob's your cousin, Marge is your uncle, I don't know that phrase well enough, but know that we figured it out. Time to build a jig. We've got just about what I was going for here. Now, unfortunately, the part that I'm not very good at and hopefully will be better at by the end of this project, as you can see, my trim is still off, so now it's going to be a lot of time, the grinder, till we get this angled right. And then once we get it angled right, hopefully, I got an idea for how we can trace it for the other side. That right there is damn near good enough to weld because I can fill the gap, but I'm going to take a little more time and see if we can just get it a little bit closer, because the less gap you have, the less it's going to pull the weld. Haters in the building, huh? Alright, so we've got our one bar and I'm pretty happy with the fit. I feel like I'm going to be able to weld it. It's going to be nice, good, not a lot of gaps. What we're going to do is we're going to transfer this over to the other one, and I have no idea that this is going to work, but in theory it should. Take some paper, right, and we can slide this up. Now, we can trim this thing right against this bar, and this is going to become our template for the new one that gets us at a way closer starting point. I'm just trying to eyeball and guess it. All right, slide this one off. That's about going to be our end. Slide that joker over. Now we know where we got to cut, how we got to trim it, all that. And this will get us way closer than just eyeballing guessing. While I'm working on getting that fitted up, we're going to get Nick started on doing a couple things. The other night you saw I trimmed part of that cowl back. We still got to trim a little more. We're going to cut this side off, and we have to cut the front of the frame rail off. One of the other things we're going to do to kind of get him used to using the welder a little bit, he's going to start going through and start sanding down some of these holes, so that way he can start filling all these holes in the firewall, all these little holes, BS stuff. We'll fill all that in, because the more holes you have in the firewall, the more chance you got fire getting through. So, poor kid worked the whole day, came out here to work more. But something's wrong with my knee. He's probably gonna see people be like, "Why are you limping?" I don't know. Something's wrong with my knee. It's not happy. It's called getting old. That's what happens. And crawling around under a POMOD all the damn time. I was thinking about this. Do you know what it would cost if that car sitting the way it is right now and all the work we have to do to it, if I sent it somewhere else, what do you think it would cost to have it running, driving, ready to go? Maybe 30,000. You know, we can't afford that. This is why we're doing it ourselves.
More fun.
It's more fun, I guess. Yeah.
Said I guess.
I mean, look, if I had 60 grand or something to just like drop off and be like, call me when it's finished, I might be that, but then it'd be like 10 years. We'd be waiting. That's the other part. It's hard to find chassis shops and stuff and everybody else that has a good turnaround time. There are some, don't get me wrong, there are some, but all right, get to work. I gotta get to work. professional. All right, so right now I got the Wishbone sitting outside drying the paint because we're starting to get to that situation where we're working faster than what we have or tools or whatever. Long story short, I ordered an extension cord, Amazon Prime delivery. It's supposed to be here today and we still don't have it. But what we do have is a center section. I went ahead and yanked that axle out, also because I need to take some measurements and stuff anyway. But I figured now would be a good opportunity to go ahead and test fit the axles, make sure everything is good. This was supposed to be new. You know, companies had wait times, issues, stuff. This is what we've got. This is what we got to work with. We went with a 410 gear. And hopefully, I know how to count. Let's see. Hey, dude, I got scared for a second. I was like, ooh, tell me that damn thing ain't going in. Yep, there we go. All right, so what we do know is that we've got good axles. It's gonna need new bearings, and then it looks like they've got the brake housing and stuff on there, so we're gonna have to get that pressed off so we can get new ends and brakes and all that kind of stuff. Also will help me out with measuring for brakes, because I think we're gonna go with Willwood front and rear master cylinder. I talked to them guys the other day, and we kind of got a game plan together about what it was I was trying to do, how we can execute and do it. So when it comes to brake time, we're doing some little funky stuff, but I'll show you guys, I'll explain along the way. Nick has been cutting this stuff out. Let's go take a look. I gotta go supervise. Supervise. You made a giant freaking mess.
Yeah, cleaned up partially.
Partially, yeah. I cleaned up partially. Actually, yeah, this is right what I was looking for. So we can get all this crap out of here. We'll just add to Nick's mess a little bit. All this 37 years of stuff in there. Yeah, that's real nice.
Jeez.
Yeah. So and then this way, actually this looks really good because it'll be nice and easy to just, we'll put a nice flat plate over there. You see, we've opened up some more room here. I don't know that we're gonna need it, but we've got it. So he's got that going. He's sanding down the firewall. Figures I just did all this stuff with the other welder, and now the big machine is out of gas, so you can't weld that. So we're just gonna keep working on what we can. I still want to cut the front of the frame rail off, and as far as this goes, I don't know if I'm gonna try to buy carbon fiber sheets. Those are like a 4x8 carbon fiber sheet is like $500. They are crazy expensive. Or maybe we'll just do some aluminum, and I'll put a little lip on here, and we'll rivet some aluminum. That'll be lightweight, cheap, all that kind of stuff. We're making progress today. Well, I'll show you guys the Wishbone when it's done drying paint. It looks really good. Did what we could with what we got. Like I said, I'm about ready to get it in the car, but stupid, silly problems. The power cord for the welder is over on that wall. I need the welder over here. We can't weld it in until I get my extension cord. So let's keep going with what we can. Alright, well, we solved one of our problems. Now, we've swapped the cars around, which works anyway, because this thing, hopefully, I'm hoping this weekend, should be picked up and out of here. And so just getting it out of the way anyway. Now we're close enough where the welder can reach. I don't need the extension cord. I just talked to Nick about how I wanted to mount this Wishbone, because the rear, there's some offset, right? Because the pinion doesn't come out of the center of the rear, it comes out of the side. So I was just having some questions on how should I ensure that it's centered, because once I weld that thing in there, it ain't moving side to side no more. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that the rear is square in the car. We can adjust the 4-link bars and we can kind of change that, but right now we're gonna go ahead and measure wheelbase. We can measure it, Nick said measure, you can measure off the mid plate. That works too, but just for what we're doing, it's gonna be a little easier to measure wheelbase, so. Good.
Yep.
I'm no mathematician, but it's 108 each side, so that tells me the rear still might not be perfectly square in the car, but if the wheelbase is the same, the tires are square, everything in that sense is square, and it should drive straight. We went through a whole mess of this with the white Camaro when I went back and forth a million times trying to figure out how to get that thing right. One thing I know is when the wheelbases match, she should be pretty square. From there, I'm gonna have to get up in here and we're gonna have to pick some points to kind of measure off of, because if you can see, it's not much. There's probably an inch that thing can kind of go back and forth. I'm gonna pick some points to measure off of. We'll go from there, and then if that works, I'll cut that top piece out that I need to access those bars, and we'll start welding in the wishbone. Getting excited. All right, well, paint's dry enough to show you finished product. We've got ourselves one beautiful wishbone here. I'm gonna go ahead, we've got some measurements on some stuff that I wanted. Everything looks pretty good. It looks like they really did a pretty decent job, whoever put this car together initially and hung the rear and everything, with keeping it pretty squared up and where it needs to be. So we're gonna go ahead and knock this plate off the front so I can get these front mounts in there, and then that's gonna kind of determine where this center mount is gonna go. We learned an important lesson today. What is that lesson? Don't do tin work until all the chassis is finished. Because now I've had to cut this out. I'm gonna have to redo it. It's gonna halfway look like crap because I had to redo it. That's right, it's good enough for a Pomon, but we need it out of the way. I can put this bad boy in. Because when the tin work was in the way, this thing wouldn't sit tight up against the bar. What I'll probably do is tack these in place, then remove the wishbone assembly itself, and then just weld these all the way around so I can get all the way around. Alright, so we've got this welded in, kind of positioned, and because of the offset of the rear with the pinion and blah 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 blah, this thing isn't going to go straight top dead center on the rear, unfortunately, which means I'm going to have to add a little bit to one side of the bracket. Have to do some trimming to kind of get it to sit down a little bit better, but it should still serve its purpose and work as intended. So I've got it all marked up now. I think I might just rotate the rear. Like if I drop the top 4-link bars and then drop out these mock-up shocks, that way we'll be able to rotate it, and then it'll just be sitting kind of down there on the ground. I'll be able to get to it. Yeah, something like that. It's not binding up, it's sliding in and out. So we've got no bind here. I gotta build a plate here and a little plate there to fill and kind of get her right, get her tight, Jack. But yeah. All right, well, we have got the chassis painted. We did a whole lot of sanding and painting and everything. We got some front stuff trimmed up. Man, we got a wishbone. I'm liking the way it looks. You know, it's the first time I've ever done a wishbone. My choices, see, this is where we got jammed up. My choices were to not center the wishbone in the frame push it off to one side, but then we'd have been into this other bar and everything else. Then I could have had it more centered on the rear. It is what it is. It's gonna work either way. As long as it's serving its purpose, I'm happy. We're making some good progress, but it's definitely time consuming. I mean, a lot of this stuff just takes time. So I'm gonna keep updating you guys as we go through, but I think that's gonna be it for tonight. We'll get another video out. I mean, we're not stopping with the work, so we've got a lot of it to get done. I'm hoping to have this done and then DNR roll bar installed, and then at that point, I feel like we can start working on putting a motor in. It might not be the motor that's gonna be in the car, but if we get a mock-up motor trans together, we start putting the motor plate in, the mid plate's already there, and then I can start building the turbo kit. There's a whole lot of fabrication work to be done, and you know, like I said, I haven't picked up a TIG welder since I made the ladder bars and helped Nick. So there's definitely some things about the TIG welder setup I want to change. I'm using a little bit too thick of tungsten, and it's just kind of making it a pain in the butt, but it's doing the job. We're getting it done. And we're getting ourselves a PO-mod, because at the end of the day, we don't got chassis shop money, so this is PO-mod chassis shop. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you tune in next time. We're gonna keep working on this thing, and I mean, there's just gonna be a whole lot of videos of all the steps of this process along the way until we get this thing wrapped up and start racing it. So I'll see you guys next time.